In the summer of 1931, Liang Sicheng moved to join his family in Beijing. The new head of the Department of Architecture at Northeastern University was Tung Juan. But a few months later, the Northeast was occupied by Japanese forces, and the staff and students of Northeastern University were forced to flee. The first group of students from Northeastern University's Department of Architecture to graduate did so in Shanghai in 1932. Liang Sicheng sent them a letter of congratulations. When you graduate, my sentiments will be summed up in the saying, mixed feelings of grief and joy. In China today, most people in society have no understanding of what architecture is. They either think architecture is about bricks and mortar, and therefore civil engineering, or about carved beams and painted rafters, and therefore fine art. They do not realize the true significance of architecture, which demands that something is fit for purpose, solid, and beautiful. If society does not understand architecture and architects, then architecture will never fully develop. It is therefore your mission to publicize architecture and your task to guide society. You are all graduating, and you are Northeastern University's first class of architecture students. You are the first domestic architects. Both Ms. Lin and I would like to congratulate you. We hope you work hard and start a new era for Chinese architecture. By the early 20th century, architecture was flourishing in China, and buildings in both the Western and the classical Chinese styles were springing up across the country. At the beginning of the century, Chinese architectural design was dominated by foreigners, but in a short space of time, the Chinese students who had returned after studying architecture abroad began to make their mark. Two famous firms of architects, Quan Shu and Yang Architects and Huiyin, had been established in Nanjing. Huiyin had been founded by three of Liang Sicheng's classmates at the University of Pennsylvania, Qianzhi, Tung Juan, and Zhao Shen. As for Quan Shu and Yang Architects, it had been set up by Yang Tingbao and Zhu Bin, who were also graduates of the Department of Architecture at the University of Pennsylvania, along with Guan Songsheng from MIT. For them, Beijing, Shanghai, and Tianjin in the 1930s offered a wealth of opportunities.
因为当时的建筑师，像他们这种从美国留学回来的，那可以做得非常好，收入都很高的。
But in 1931, Liang Sicheng chose a different path. He wanted to do something that no scholar had done before. He wanted to study China's architectural history and establish a foundation for the study of Chinese architecture.
但是毕竟你现在回头看，他学了建筑，这真是对我们一个民族文化来讲是一个万幸，就是说做成了这样的事情。就他有一种责任心，他这个责任心是超越了很多一般的当时其他的知识分子的。尽管我们讲其他知识分子他都有这个爱国啊这种理想，这个都有，这个价值取向是一致的，但是程度是有差别的。也就是当你在做命运的抉择的时候，你这个天平倾向于哪边，这个时候是一个程度的问题。
In making his choice, Liang Sicheng was influenced by a mysterious book. In 1919, a government official, Zhu Qiqian, came across a handwritten copy of the ancient text Yingzhao Fa Shi, Building Standards, in Nanjing's Jiangnan Library. The book, published around 1,000 years ago by a scholar named Li Jie, who was the Northern Song Dynasty official in charge of building work, is a treatise on ancient Chinese architectural design and construction. In that era, the people involved in building, housing and other civil engineering projects were considered craftsmen, and they would pass on their trade to apprentices almost entirely by word of mouth. As a result, there are very few written records of the techniques and skills they used. Zhu Qiqian, who was passionate about ancient Chinese architecture, was thrilled to discover this ancient classic. During the early years of the Republic of China period, Zhu Qiqian served as Minister of Transport, Chief Director of the Department of Internal Affairs, and for a brief time, acting Premier. In these various posts, he was responsible for many of Beijing's public works.
我们现在知道，城市街道两边有航道树。在清朝的时候，那个街道里没有树的。清朝的北京街道上没有树的，是他开始栽种的。主要街道种的是槐树，护城河的两边种的都是柳树。我们现在看到的中山公园，就是他创办的。天坛呐、颐和园呐、景山呐，都是他在任的时候对群众开放的。
Zhu Qiqian's other notable achievements included opening up Chang'an Avenue, Beichuzi Street and Nanchuzi Street to traffic, building a railway around the city, and rebuilding Tianmen. In 1925, while studying architecture in the United States, Liang, Sicheng and Huiyin received a copy of Yingzhou Fashi in the post. It had been sent by Liang Sicheng's father, who wrote, "Sicheng and Huiyin, please treasure this always." Liang Sicheng would later recall, "After a moment of surprise, I felt hugely disappointed and upset because I could not understand this beautiful masterpiece." The copy of Yingzhou Fashi sent to him in the United States would accompany Liang Sicheng for the rest of his life. Deciphering the book became a key focus of his research into ancient Chinese architecture.